Hey, I'm Hand Lex and we're back at Deckademics DJ and Production School and Gear Supply. And today we're talking turntables. Technics came out with their 1200 in 1972. And since then, DJ turntables have been largely unchanged. Sure, some makers have added some bits and bobs along the way, but they've remained fairly static in terms of form and function. Today we're taking a look at the Reloop RP-8000 MK2, a deck that I think serves as a new paradigm shift in DJ turntables. The MK2 comes 5 years after the OG was released in 2014 and sees significant updates all around the deck. Let's dive in. At its core, the 8000 MK2 is a very reworked handpin Super OEM deck. A bass design that's been tried and tested for over a decade in models like the Pioneer PLX 1000, Stanton 150, as well as the first-gen RP-7000 and 8000 Reloop decks. This direct drive motor has been proven reliable and is even more finely tuned with this edition. The starting torque has been increased up to 2.8 and maxes out at 4.5 kilograms per centimeter, and this can be adjusted on the fly above the pitch fader where it sits next to a separate brake control. The brake can be dialed into taste, from a nearly instant stop to a gradual 6-second slowdown. The redesigned bass improves stability and needle tracking, and the tone arm is updated with a more rigid aluminum tube for decreased resonance. Standard nightclub counterweight setting track fine, but the included weight is a little too light to run heavier carts under lower weight. For instance, in order to balance this, the weight zeroes out without even being threaded on the back of the arm. That said, there's not really any issue here, but a heavier counterweight is available from Reloop should you need it. The platter is heavy and rubber lined, and like the 7000 and 8000 models prior, sits atop the deck, unlike the recessed edge of a 1200. This can initially feel a little different for lifelong Technics DJs, but in use, I found the exposed bottom lip to be helpful in making precise platter drags while beat matching. The strobe indicator dots are still there, of course, so I've been using the extra real estate as sort of a fine and coarse pitch adjustment. On these decks, the on-off knob only controls the motor, so power down transitions are no problem. The reverse, 33 and 45 RPM buttons are all rubber and click quite nicely, and 78 RPM is selectable by pressing the buttons at the same time. The digital pitch fader is smooth and sits recessed on the deck. Above it are selectable ranges of plus or minus 8, 16, and 50% ultra pitch with the reset button to the side. Everything here feels exactly like you want it to, and there's no hesitation or delay to the platter when making adjustments. Percentage indicators printed next to the fader are a little hard to read in a club, but the liquid crystal display takes the worry off there with a 0.02% resolution. The display is the information hub for the deck, and it's bright and easy to read. Aside from pitch position, the display can show elapsed or remaining track time, BPM information, and scale and note information during platter play. And all that brings us to what sets this deck apart from other turntables, and that's the built-in pad section and platter play functionality. The pad location is the same between generations 1 and 2, but everything else has been improved with this release. The larger buttons are now RGB backlit and offer a small but nice response when played. I really appreciate that the tops of the buttons sit flush with the top of the deck, which should keep any misfires to a minimum. The navigation encoder moves through the library and loads tracks, including doubles. They've foregone the second start-stop button with this version and occupy the space instead with pad mode and shift buttons. This is an official Serato accessory, so all the familiar cue, loop, slicer, and sampler modes are within a tap or two, including 2 freely assignable user modes. The pads are MIDI mappable as well, so you don't have to be Team Serato to use the feature. Up to 4 decks can be USB daisy-chained together, so only one USB connection is needed at your computer. Independent pad modes are awesome, and when paired with the Reloop Elite Mixer, open up a new range of creativity. And so does platter play. You access it by holding Shift and Reset, which disables the pitch fader, and now the motor speed of anything you play, analog or digital, is controlled by the pads. Each pad corresponds to different note values within a scale, with 22 preloaded scales and 9 user scale banks available using the pitch range buttons above the fader. You can move through the 3 available octaves using the navigation knob, and the pad color changes to reflect where you are within that range. Platter play can also be controlled using a USB MIDI controller, and while the Vestax PDX 3000 was the first to implement that feature, that's an old and hard to find deck, and Reloop is making this technology available to anybody right now. What you can do with this deck is really kind of endless, and in my eyes represents a fundamental shift in the paradigm of DJing. A focus of in-key mixing and use of Serato's pitch play has been around for a while, and in some ways has really upped the perceived musicianship of us DJs. Platter play can take that to the next level, and it's going to be really fun to watch DJs around the world get their hands on this and make music only possible using the features found on this deck. Reloop calls this an upper torque hybrid turntable instrument, and it is every one of those things in every way that you want to use it. As a turntable, it feels, performs, and sounds just like you want it to. A lot of time and thought went into the layout of this, and clearly Reloop values the input of the DJs on the roster. This turntable represents a new generation in performance possibility and musicality. With integrated pads and platter play, there's almost nothing you can't do with it. These advanced modes will take a lot of time and a lot of creativity for most of us, but it's there if you want to use it. There's almost nothing you can't do with these turntables. I actually bought a pair for myself, and they've become my go-to decks in the studio or when I go out. I got mine from Deckademics, and you can too. Check us out at deckademics.com/store and follow us here for more gear reviews. As always, you can't download practice, so you better get to it. Peace.